Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me, Rocky Top Insider Zone, Ryan Schumpert. Ryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to be back on here. We've already gotten nice and warmed up off air with some nice conversation. The sky might be falling, but we'll hash it out here.
I don't know what you're talking about. Ethan Stone of Cider Down South also here. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I know we're talking football, but I gotta say it. I love Feast Week. Feast Week is so incredible. College basketball,
unbelievable.
It's amazing. And the college football playoff is fun, and we're eating well. It's good stuff right now with football and basketball.
It is good stuff. There's a lot going on. I mean, we're kind of overwhelmed because there's a lot. I mean, NBA's here. We got NHL. We got the Preds. We got the Hawks. We got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of stuff on the plate to parse through every single day here. I know Ryan's making a face like, oh, oof, why are you watching all that? But look, there was also some craziness. CBS Sports Network. What are we doing? Why is that on CBS Sports Network for the Bahama games for Tennessee men's basketball?
A bunch of these tournaments.
They need to, like, we need to be past this. There should be no more games on where I have to like go through and feel like a boomer, getting through the TV guide and being like, do I have this? Do I have this? How do I get CBS Sports Network so I can watch the Vols put it on Virginia and Baylor? But we'll get into some basketball too. But Ryan's really itching to figure out who the starting left fielder is going to be for Tennessee baseball in 2025. Jack and I have got it down to 3 guys, but I think Ryan really has a good feel where things stand here in late November. So he's chomping at the bit. So we'll get to that. But before we get to all of that, we have to start off with Tennessee UTEP 56-0. The Vols take care of the Miners 48 hours later. Ethan Stone, what is your biggest takeaway, and what did you learn the most about Tennessee?
Well, obviously it's UTEP, so I mean, it's you get Georgia playing a cupcake, you get us playing a cupcake, and then you get literally everybody else losing to unranked teams on the road. I feel like that's.
Mizzou.
I mean, I understand this is a cop-out answer, but I feel like that has to be the biggest development for Tennessee. It's just like, if you win next week, you're in, and you didn't get anybody hurt against UTEP, and Nico played fairly well after the first quarter. And I mean, that's just as much as you can ask for. Like, just don't move backwards in your game that you're supposed to win by 50. And obviously, Tennessee's the defense. James Pierce played one of his best games, as he should, when he's facing off against UTEP. Didn't allow a single point. I mean, it was a perfect weekend for Tennessee football fans. It was as perfect as it could have been. The only way it could have been better is if Minnesota had beat Penn State, because that might legitimately put Tennessee in the spot for hosting in the first round. They still have a chance to, but they need a lot to happen. So, yeah, that's my takeaway. Just everything else that happened outside of that game. It could not have fallen better for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What about you, Ryan?
Well, building off of that, I was so ready to tweet out the video of Joe Biden going, Minnesota! If they could have pulled that game off. I had found the video and sent it in a group message early in the day. I was ready to go with it. The game itself had looked like I didn't feel like it was going to happen before the game, but if there was ever any doubt, any thought that some offensive explosion was still coming for this Tennessee, I think Tennessee offense, you can put it to bed. Again, I didn't think that offensive explosion was coming, but any hope you had in the back of your mind, I think, goes away with that game. Tennessee doesn't score in the first quarter. Combines, I think, for 1 first down on their first 3 drives. Nico missed a couple open throws in there, and Tennessee's biggest pass play of the game was 25 yards against UTEP. It's just it's a deeply flawed offense. They can be efficient at times and put some stuff together, but everything clicking and everything meshing on offense to pair with an elite defense to make Tennessee like a true championship contender. If there was any doubts, I think Saturday probably should have put them to bed. That's just not going to happen.
I mean, it's just evident when Dante Thornton is like, the offense and everything just feels so much better when Dante Thornton has a catch or two that go for 40 plus. Like the game feels different. And when Dante Thornton has a big play, the offense feels different. Orion, you've been on this all year. I mean, Dante's been your best receiver all year long. It's notable when he does not have a big play for Tennessee's offense. Usually that means the Tennessee offense did not have a good day vertically if Dante Thornton is not involved. You mentioned the longest play. It was 25 yards to Mike Matthews in this game, and he played a lot. So we'll see what that snap count looks like going into Saturday against Vanderbilt. Does that mean a even more increased workload for Mike down the stretch here? Where's Chris Brazel at this point? Brew McCoy, 2 touchdowns in this game, 1 in the slot, which we never see from Brew, which was a cool moment for him. He had been held scoreless all season long. He gets 2 in this game. But I think to me, and I don't know if y'all feel this way, but it's easy to overlook, but you go through Boo Carter's last 3 games in punt returns. Like, Boo Carter is something that we talk about, like the lack of explosiveness with this offense, and just it is what it is at this point. But Tennessee is really good defensively. Another shutout here. Really good defensive line. They're healthy in a lot of key spots. Their corners are really good. Their special teams is firing on all cylinders, whether it's Jackson Ross, Boo Carter, or Max Gilbert. They're all rolling. Tennessee's not turning the ball over offensively. Like, Nico's had just 1 fumble here in his last 16 quarters. No picks. Dylan Sampson doesn't fumble in this
fumble too.
Huh?
Meaningless fumble.
Right, exactly.
Play,
so you could even
over.
say he's basically played clean for his last 16 quarters here. So they're playing winning football in a lot of different ways. It's just the one glaring missing piece here, and it's weird in the Heupel coach team, is just the lack of explosive plays down the field. Like, there's just no chunk plays, there's no rhythm there, but you can get away with that and win 56-0 and beat a lot of good teams because you're so good everywhere else. Like, Tennessee deserves credit for their special teams unit being this good and this elite down the stretch here. That keeps them in games. Boo Carter's flipping games. Like, he was responsible for 2 touchdowns in this game. He didn't break one yet, but Boo Carter is going to break one. Maybe he does the D. Williams punt return against Vanderbilt on Saturday. It's absolutely in play. Like, Boo Carter is, I mean, he got inside the 10 on one of his. He had I think 38-yard return in this game. He's a difference maker back there. And I guess people are going to keep punting to him, and he's going to keep finding ways to navigate and making the first guy miss. But I think that's a big takeaway for me is like, okay, yeah, the offense has its struggles, but Boo Carter continues to just do everything possible. And I think Nico talked about, like, it'd be cool to have him on offense or something after the game. And I think a lot of fans were like, yeah, why are we sure Boo Carter can't go Travis Hunter and play 2 ways here and be the slot receiver for Tennessee? Because the guy's really good and very shifty and very, just explosive. Like, he just stands out, and it's so easy to forget that he's a true freshman out of Bradley Central, but Boo is a superstar, and he just does so much for Tennessee. And I think now down the stretch, that could be the difference in the Vanderbilt game. Like, if this is a 14-17 type game going to the fourth quarter, one Boo Carter big time return can flip the game and maybe put the game away. Like, I can't overlook, and I hope folks don't overlook just how good Boo Carter has been on special teams the last 3 weeks. And also Jackson Ross pinning teams back. Like, Jackson's been elite, and Max Gilbert hasn't missed a kick in several weeks. So I think that's my biggest takeaways, Ethan, is that that the special teams unit, Mike Eckler's group, is rolling. And when you don't have the explosiveness on offense that we're accustomed to, playing clean football, not turning it over, and a defense that does not allow touchdowns really, especially when you get in the red zone and you play elite special teams, like, you're going to win a lot of games.
It's certainly an underrated part of it. I mean, you get the ball closer, your offense doesn't have to do as much.
Yep.
They just need to play winning football, as you just said. I think it has to be noted the Jackson Ross hitting the Heisman. That was amazing.
Elite stuff.
In the game. That was fantastic.
It's a personality off between Ross and Thorson from Georgia, where he came in and talking about Kirby Smart and all that, like his tackling. He did that tackling clinic. I don't know if y'all saw Georgia posting that last week because he saved a Boo Carter touchdown a week ago. Mm-hmm. So him and Thorson are pretty funny. They have a lot of personality.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention is I like I don't know if you made the comparison, but I will if you didn't. I think Boo Carter anyway, and D. Williams have a pretty decent amount in common, especially when it comes to, like, hey, let's see if this guy can do anything out of the backfield in offense. I wouldn't hate to try it. And remember when people were clamoring for that for D Williams for like forever. I don't know. I was thinking that before you brought it up, that it wouldn't be a bad idea to try and get him just something, because he's so shifty. I mean, I get it was UTEP, I say again, but he's so shifty that you got to be able to do something with that to take advantage of that.
I mean, it's not even just UTEP. I mean, the last 3 games, I mean, it's Georgia, he flipped the field. It's Mississippi State, he flipped the field. I mean, it's going to keep coming up. Like, that's part of the game. It's not as notable for a lot of folks as part of the game, but it is. I mean, it's also like Bryson Eason. He was your highest graded defender in this game. Bryson Eason's really good against the run. He's really good on early downs, but that's not something that pops, from the outside. And I think he's like one of those guys who just maximizes. He's just a good dude, and he's someone that, like, we'll see what happens with him in this offseason, because it would be nice to have him back, because he's played consistently 300 plus snaps for you all of these last 3 seasons. It doesn't feel like it because he's not a sack guy, so you don't really notice it as much what he's doing, but Gardner trusts him a lot. I think Bryson Eason, if that was his last game in Neyland, he went out with his best performance of the year, but I hope he comes back because I think Bryson it'd be nice to have that rotation at the top of Bryson, Jackson, Moy, and David Hobbs, because you're going to lose Simmons, you're going to lose Amari Thomas, you're going to lose Omar Norman Lott in the interior, and that's one of the best. That's been where Tennessee has been elite, especially is on the interior, and I think Eason and company have a lot to do with that. So, I mean, that was something that also stood out in this game. Is like Tennessee. I mean, Eason could come back, and I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you want Eason back for one more ride here.
No doubt. I mean, I think it's extremely important that he comes back, just because, I mean, there's some guys waiting in the wings that you feel decent about a defensive tackle, but for a defensive line, and particularly the interior of the defensive line, has been so good just because of, not just because of, but in large part because of the strength and numbers aspect. And I think you're going to lose some of that anyway. But because of that, it makes it all the more important that you are able to get Bryson Eason back, and to a lesser extent with Dominique Bailey too, that strong side defensive end spot. So completely agree. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot last year with D Williams with a bad offensive, like just the importance of having someone that can make plays. And you find yourself, I mean, Tennessee's offense is probably a little bit better than it was last year, but it's not a lot better. And so it's important once again. The one thing I would say, and look, don't get me wrong, it'd be cool to see Boo Carter play some on offense and see what he can do. To me, I just think the big difference here is, with all due respect to D Williams, he couldn't do it. He was not a good player on defense. And Boo Carter is a freshman who is good and very talented, but still very raw and developing a lot on defense. And I think can get a lot better on defense and become a first-team All-SEC type defensive back. And maybe it is worth it, but I'm not sure I would risk stunting his development to get him offensive snaps. But maybe it is worth it. I don't know. That's just a take that I'm maybe not super tied to.
I'm just glad Boo Carter is on the Tennessee Volunteers. He's fun to watch, and he's true freshman. And getting 3 years minimum of this is going to be a delight, because Tennessee has not had a player like Boo Carter in a long time.
Well, he is one of the ones, I don't know if you remember, when he committed, he said, excited to spend the next 3 years at the University of Tennessee.
Did he say 3?
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic stuff. I love that for Boo, and he's right, because Boo Carter is he's an NFL type guy. Like Boo Carter's gonna be just fine. But that's funny. Is Vanderbilt though? I've been thinking about this going in now that it is officially Vanderbilt week here. Ethan, is Vanderbilt a good or bad matchup for Tennessee based on the way Vanderbilt is built right now?
I'll add a third option. I'll say Vanderbilt is a terrifying matchup because they play that. I'm not gonna now. That's not because Vanderbilt is some world killer, because they're just really not. If you look at, like, you hear the stuff and you see them beating Alabama and you see them in a bowl for the first time, I think, since 2018, and you just assume that they have it all figured out. It really is just, it's Diego Pavia. They don't turn the ball over. They don't commit penalties. They play really smart football. It's like, I kind of look at it as the peak of what like Army and Navy want to be. They just want to gain a few yards. They're not going to kill you with an explosive play. get a few yards and kind of grind you to death. I think their time of possession is also up there in the SEC. I don't know if it's first or second. It's up there.
Third.
It's way up there. They hog the ball. They don't make mistakes. They grind you to death. And with the way that Tennessee starts games, if Vanderbilt can get the momentum in their favor and control the tempo of this game, that's horrifying. That's absolutely something that I feel like could put Tennessee in a bad situation if the dominoes fall a certain way. Now, I mean, you look at it on the flip side, and I alluded to it a bit earlier. Their defense is their run defense is bad. Their secondary is even worse. It's a bottom 3 unit in the SEC. Their defense is a bottom 5 unit in the SEC. They're not as athletic. They're going to be playing at home in the state of Tennessee, where the Vols are probably once again going to overtake the stadium. And it's just, this is a very weird Vanderbilt team because, you see that they beat Alabama and you see that they danced with Texas. And then the last 2 weeks they got blown out by LSU and South Carolina. Not blown out by LSU, but blown out by South Carolina. It almost seemed as if they get to 6 wins and they're like, all right, we got the bowl. Let's focus on Tennessee. There's a chance that something like that happened, I feel like. And I don't know. I feel like this is a very Tennessee thing. Obviously, it's in the back of everyone's minds. Tennessee's they have a chance to go to the college football playoff. The sole team in their way is Vanderbilt, who hasn't really done anything against us in a meaningful year in forever. And it would just be a fairy tale ending for them. It would be perfect for that to be Vanderbilt's crowning achievement to go out with this year. So, yeah, I don't think they're a good matchup for us. I think it's very scary.
Interesting. Ryan, do you agree?
Yeah, I lean that way for a lot of reasons Ethan has said. And he hit on this. Not a team that creates many chunk plays. A team that drives the ball slow down the field with a running quarterback that can make plays happen at any time. He's a little bit of a magician. And that's kind of the recipe, I feel like, to having success against Tennessee's defense. Tennessee doesn't give up a whole lot of chunk plays, but if you can find a way to convert third downs, which is hard. I mean, Tennessee's outside the Georgia game, Tennessee's third down defense has been very good. I think that would be one of my biggest keys for the game, is for Tennessee to get off the field on third down. And Vanderbilt's been exceptional offensively in the red zone. I mean, they've really capitalized. They've been balanced. I think it's 38 trips to the red zone. They have 36 scores, and I think it's 26, 28 touchdowns, so a high clip of touchdowns, and they've been very balanced between running the ball. It's not like Arkansas, who was pretty good when they got in the red zone, but they could only run the ball. And you're like, all right, well, Tennessee's run defense is good enough. Do you feel good's going to hold up? They've been balanced there. I think it's Eli Stowers or Stowers.
Yeah, Eli Stowers.
Pronounce his name. Stowers. Tight ends are top receiver. We've seen what tight ends can do, and Tennessee's issues with linebackers and safeties and coverage. I think all of that is reason for concern, and just the combination of Tennessee, it's one of the things that's been so great about Josh Heupel for his first couple of years. And now it's the thing that's all right, well, it's not a strength. Well, it's if you can score a lot of points, even if you're not great, we saw this in 2021. Perfect example. You can score a lot of points, even without a great defense. It's going to be hard for the bad teams in the SEC to hang with you because they're just not good enough offensively, even against the bad defense to score a lot. Well, it's just reverse now. Tennessee's offense doesn't score points. They scored 24. If you win 24 points or score 24 points, you might win a lot of games with a really good defense, but all the games are going to be close. And the way Vanderbilt shortens games, I have a hard time thinking this game won't be close against a Vanderbilt team that fully believes that they can pull off an upset, fully believes in themselves. And not that I think Tennessee's going to be lacking any confidence, but certainly all the pressure's on them in this game. So, and I guess the one other thing that I would add on that, Ethan's point, or kind of going against Ethan's point, their run defense is fine. Their run defense is 8th in the SEC. So not great by any means. A lot better than their pass defense. And look, when Tennessee can't just line up and run at you, they're pretty shaky offensively. So all of that makes me think they're not a very good matchup. But I would say, Tennessee's defense has been so good getting off the field on third downs besides the Georgia game, and Vanderbilt is so ball control dominant. If Tennessee can force Vanderbilt in the third and longs and get off the field, I do think their defense can be pretty dominant just because of the lack of explosive plays that Vanderbilt creates.
I mean, Vanderbilt's given up the second most 20-plus yard plays in conference play this season. The chunk plays, I think, will be there if Tennessee wants them. I don't think Tennessee's offensive line should struggle in this matchup. I think, to Ethan's point,
pass rush.
Yeah, I think they're going to run the ball on Vanderbilt. Now I'm curious what that rotation looks like. I'm going to guess we're going to see, because Samp had less than 20 carries this week. I think you're going to see.
He had 11 carries. I know you were rejoicing, Chase.
Oh yeah, like
which is accurate. You should have been. They handled it exactly how they should have.
Yeah.
Yes. Dylan Sampson. I think this week my gut is we're going 35. To. I think it's going to be in the 30s. I really do. Like I think Peyton Lewis has been a great story.
More. I can't get enough Dylan Sampson. That's going to be Josh Heupel and Joey Halsley on Saturday.
You know, if it was a home game, they should have done like a promotion where it's like if Dylan Sampson gets 35 carries, everybody in Neyland Stadium gets a free chicken sandwich or something. Like I don't know. They should have done some kind of just to have people going nuts. Because I think he's going to get like Dylan Sampson is going to get a heck of a lot of carries on Saturday, and I think Dylan Sampson is probably going to have to take this team home on Saturday. But like I said, Tennessee has not been turning the ball over. Tennessee's not been putting themselves in a bad spot. Tennessee's special teams has been really good. I think, and I wonder if y'all agree with this, if this was in Knoxville on Saturday, I think all three of us would be like, oh yeah, Tennessee's going to win big. Like I don't think there's a question that this is like, oh yeah, Tennessee they'll win. This will be like a 42-14 type deal at home. And it doesn't actually feel like 42-14, but they just like coast to 42-14. You're like, oh, wow, Tennessee actually won by 4+ touchdowns. Okay. But I think in Nashville and just seeing Texas struggle, obviously seeing Alabama go down in Nashville, it's just more of an also SEC teams went 1-5 in the conference. Only Missouri won on the road this week. So that's all up in play. But also, if you're a Tennessee fan, you feel good because you're like, maybe that was last week. Everybody went down last week, but now lightning striking twice here, a little bit more unlikely. But part of me just feels like we're overthinking this. Like it feels kind of like 2 years ago when Vanderbilt had some juice down the stretch, and I think Kirk Herbstreit picked Vanderbilt to beat Tennessee 2 years ago, and then Tennessee proceeded to take that personally in the rain and run for a gazillion yards on Vanderbilt. And I understand it's a little bit different, but this is a rivalry that Tennessee just like. It feels kind of like Kentucky to me, where it's going to go. And they're kind of like Kentucky now, the way they're built this season, where ball control, borderline triple option offense. There's not a lot of downfield stuff. The offense doesn't have a lot of juice, but if you have a fun quarterback like Diego Pavia, then it will keep you in some games here. But I just think it's going to be like the Kentucky games of the last two road matchups for Tennessee, where I think they're going to hang around. I think they're going to be amped up for this game. But I think ultimately Tennessee is going to find a way to win. I just think it's going to be close, and I think it's going to be nauseating that Tennessee wins like 28-24 or something, and they just sneak in. And you're just like, at least that's over. At least we're in. That's my gut. But, man, I think fans want this to not be a heart palpitation type game on Saturday in Nashville, and I can't promise that. I just don't think that's the way it's going to go. I don't think Tennessee's blowing them out.
Yeah, I can't think it's going to be
awful.
Yeah.
The only good thing is that at least it's a noon game.
Yeah.
So it's like just you get it, you get up and you play it and get it over with. At least you don't wait and it's 11:30 at night and the game is still.
That's true.
His season's up on the line with Diego Pavia driving with 5 minutes left in the game down 4. Like, can you imagine? The hardest? Someone might die in the state of Tennessee. If it was 11:30 at night and they were liquored up. And Tennessee's season's on the line with this magician from New Mexico driving to try to steal Tennessee's playoff bid.
Oh my gosh! It also protects Tennessee fans from like Broadway on Saturday night. If this was a night game and that's how it ends, if Diego Pavia just goes down and like would they do double goalpost? Is this a double goalpost situation if they beat Tennessee in the spot?
Generally speaking, yes, but all the New England elites that attend Vanderbilt University will probably be home for Thanksgiving and not able to spurn that trip. The East Coast elites.
But yeah, I think we all agree, right? Like Tennessee's gonna win. Tennessee should win.
I'll be picking Tennessee to win.
I will.
How confident am I going to be in that? I don't know, Jim, but.
I don't know, Jim.
24-20 Vols is my Monday thought, but yeah, I mean Tennessee's the better team. I think they'll win, but yeah, what we've been.
It just feels like one of those
a
Lexington
miserable
games.
experience.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be miserable. Like the Lexington games are miserable for Tennessee every time. Like they're always
different different miserable, and those are high scoring miserable. I think this is low scoring miserable, and the stakes are just so much higher.
Yeah. Final football thing. Ethan, you're all across the college football landscape here. Best first round opponent for the Vols would be who, based on who's the most realistic? Who should Vol fans be hoping that they get matched up if they take care of business on Saturday?
Well, I feel like this is kind of I have kind of two answers to this question. If you're not hosting, I feel like you got to be aiming for Penn State. You got to hope that they get the 7 and Tennessee draws the 10, and you
want Happy Valley.
I mean, against all the other against everything else, I think I do, just because Penn State isn't Indiana in their schedule, but they haven't played they haven't beaten anybody elite. They're not like they've played Minnesota, who's a good team. They beat West Virginia, who's a pretty good team, but that was way back when. They beat Illinois, who's not half bad, but they haven't played anybody either. So I just feel like that would be advantageous for Tennessee just from a physicality standpoint. Like, I think Tennessee and Penn State match up well. I don't particularly like Drew Aller. And I don't know. I just I don't want to play Notre Dame, me personally. I don't think they're going to go far, but I'd rather Penn State in that scenario. My other
would you rather would you rather get at Penn State or at Notre Dame?
I mean, I guess that's what it would be. So I'd rather in the environment, I'd rather take Notre Dame, but the team I'd rather take.
I'm with you, Ethan.
Yeah,
Tennessee's throwing for 175 yards tops against Notre Dame's secondary.
Yeah.
But I don't think the environment's as hard. So
yeah, and I think you'd rather have James Franklin in that spot. I think you.
The other answer, which I mean,
it would be fitting it would be an ode to Tennessee football past for a season to come to an end at the hands of James Franklin, just like he's back on West End.
We should also say, I personally am hoping I would love Notre Dame Tennessee just for like the look and the feel and that would just be.
Gotta wear the orange pants and
that would just be nice. Like there's just something that would look really nice on screen. Like it would look really good to see Tennessee and Notre Dame play a playoff game. I would like the visuals there.
Yeah.
I feel like the other part of my answer is what Tennessee fans want is the 8 seed so they can host. Yeah. And I think just about the only path to that is Texas A&M beating Texas and then the committee deciding that Tennessee has a better record than Texas and, seeing Indiana not, I guess, struggle against Purdue. I think.
What if Notre Dame loses, though? I think they would host if Notre Dame lost, right?
If they'd have to jump Indiana, which I think they might jump Indiana now.
I was going to say they might jump Indiana this week.
Now that just now that Indiana doesn't have to fall out for Tennessee to jump them, I think it becomes a lot more in play for Tennessee to jump them. Yeah. I don't think the committee was ever going to let Tennessee jump them for Indiana not to make it. But now that they'll both make it, feels more in play.
And also, I guarantee there's a TV element. Like there's just like the 102,000 person venue versus, no offense to Indiana, but you just can't tell me that TV is not going to be in play here. And what stadium sizes look like, fan base sizes, ratings. Like you cannot tell me that will not factor in to these final seedings.
Yeah, but if Tennessee does get that 8, is it Texas? Is it Indiana? I feel like the reality is probably Texas in that scenario because they need to be the 8 seed anyway. I don't know how that would go. I think they might.
I would think they would win. Tennessee at home. Outside of Georgia, I feel pretty good about Heupel at home, and Neyland would be rocking for a home playoff game. I would pick Tennessee over Texas at home. I would go that way.
Yeah, I would. I think I would as well. It would be better to be Indiana, but I don't know if that
Indiana might get run out of the building if they play a first round game here in Tennessee. That one. You talk about not being ready for a moment. Like Indiana is just like, this feel good Cinderella story, and walking into Neyland for a first round playoff game, especially if it's at night or something, that would remind me, I think, a little bit of South Carolina from last year, where I think it would be overwhelming.
I'm an Indiana hater myself. I like they're fun. I get it. They're a lot of fun, but like You played your one good team and you got run out of the gym, and you played Michigan and their physicality almost beat you, and your best one is Washington. Like, I'm sorry, man. I don't see it. I think they get mopped by anybody. I think they're going to lose first round by 20 to anybody they play.
Ethan, if you consider Joel Klatt's point that I'm not even sure you can count the game because it was punt plays that worked against them, because apparently that football doesn't count if it happens on a punt play.
That goes against what I just pitched here at the top of the program. I just pitched like why special teams could flip the game here. This is news to me, Ryan.
Well, I'm making fun of Joel Klatt.
I know.
And look, the ESPN people do it too. So I'm not gonna sit here and just act like nobody does it. But in the middle of the game, the way Joel Klatt was shamelessly plugging Indiana was over the top. Getting mad at Ryan Day for scoring the touchdown at the end of the game because it made Indiana look worse. The punt stuff, I mean, it was...
Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. Well, we shall see. Hoops.
One note real quick. I thought you were going to throw it to me, so that was
sorry. Sorry. I did not. That was bad job by me. We now go to Ryan Schumpert in the Rocky Top Insider contingent. Ryan, what do you got for us?
I generally agree with most everything Ethan said, so you really didn't need to throw it to me, and I weighed in on that. The one point I will make, if Tennessee doesn't get to the 8 seed, I think you want to be the 11 seed to possibly get matched up with the ACC winner. If you pull the upset, because to me, Notre Dame, Penn State, it feels relatively similar. Way rather be the 11, play whichever one of them. Probably Penn State ends up being the 6. Because then you get SMU or Clemson or Miami, one of those teams, as opposed to being the 10, playing the other one of them, which, again, it feels like we're splitting hairs here on who's the better matchup, only to then have to go play at Georgia, which would be absolutely, or I guess not at Georgia, but against Georgia in a neutral site, which would be absolutely no fun for anybody, except for Georgia fans. It'd probably be fun for Georgia fans. I want no part of that. Avoid Georgia. It's really just avoid Georgia and Ohio State at all costs. I think both are just terrible matchups.
I don't like Oregon either.
I don't know. I don't know.
Dillon Gabriel's the only reason.
I think Dillon Gabriel would struggle against this defense. I think Dillon Gabriel would have problems.
It's possible.
I think Tennessee would be in a game against Oregon. I think they'd be okay. I wouldn't predict them to win, but I think they'd be okay. I think Ohio State and Georgia are the only two I go in where I'm like, I don't think this is possible.
I want to stay away from just about any SEC team, really. And I get that there's probably only going to be 2. Like, I wouldn't love playing Texas or Georgia. Georgia more so because, like,
But you would rather play Georgia than Texas?
No. I'm not done. What I like, this take kind of originated from thinking that Alabama would be in the playoff. And so, like, I wanted to avoid Alabama and Georgia because they know Tennessee, and that's not what you want. You want a team that would have to scout you. And I don't want Georgia. Texas, I mean, they haven't played us, but still, like, they can scout you because they're in the SEC. They have more of the resources. They're right there. But
yeah. Week 3, Hoops reactions here. Vols lose JP Estrella for the season. A thin roster already. Like, someone commented, like, I posted about the Estrella injury today. I'm like, we're not thin. We have Felix Sakpara and Cade Phillips and Igor Milicic and Darlinson DeBar is back. And it's like, yeah, you have options, but JP Estrella, like, we're talking about legitimate, like, 5s on this roster now. And you're down to, like, Estrella, it just sucks because he just seems like an awesome teammate and just an awesome program guy. A lot of talent, borderline top 50 prospect a year ago. He's just someone you could see really developing into a really good player at Tennessee. And this was a big year for his development because you lose Awaka and Adu in the same offseason. Like, he's penciled in right there. Like, Cade Phillips is a really good player. Cade's coming along. Getting DeBar back is obviously super helpful. He's been good, but he's not a 5. He's not going to play 5 for you. Milicic, we'll see if he can hold up and what the foul trouble looks like. Like, there's a situation where those guys are going to be undersized, and depending, it will be matchup based and what that looks like because Estrella is 6'11" and can bang with a lot of guys that Cade Phillips and Igor will not be in the same weight class, really, inside, depending on who they're matched up against. So it will be matchup based. I don't think it will, like you saw in the Bahamas, there was no JP Estrella Tennessee rolled over one really good team in Baylor and one team that's maybe very not good in Virginia. Tough look there. But what do you make of the Estrella injury news, Ryan Schumpert, and what it means for Tennessee's rotation and just where they're at in numbers the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what you said. I think most nights they're going to be fine. Like, it's not going to be just some massive loss. And I think I said it on here maybe last week, or maybe we were just talking at a different time. Like, to me, almost a big part of the loss with Estrella was that he missed this whole offseason. And like, it didn't feel like the big jump that we hoped was going to come, even if he was healthy this year, was going to come, because he missed so much of the offseason. So I think on a night-to-night basis, you don't feel it a ton, but there are certainly some matchups. And I sit here, I got Auburn on in the background, and that's certainly a matchup that's going to, with Shania Broom and Dylan Cardinal. I mean, they're the biggest team in the SEC. Like, that's going to be a real problem for Tennessee, not having JP Estrella in that game. And I think you lose some versatility. Like, we saw it a handful, not a ton. And I don't think it was Tennessee at their best, but like, the Missouri game comes to mind last year. Tennessee's playing a bad Missouri team on the road. Things are not clicking for them. And they go with a lineup with Tobey and Jonas, which is clearly not their best lineup. Like, it's not a lineup you want to see Tennessee play a ton, but in a certain game it worked. And when Tennessee wasn't playing well, it was their best option. And you lose some of that ability. So I think that's where it hurts them a lot. And yeah, I mean, really, really thin. Like, Tennessee had practice on Tuesday, open to the media. And there were, portions of that practice when Chaz Lanier was not participating because he had a migraine, where they had 8 scholarship guys out there. It's a thin team, and it's not so thin that like they haven't lost a bunch of the key guys. And I think what they do have is quality. Like, the guys that they have on scholarship, I think, are all pretty quality players, but it feels like an injury away from like it turning into like, all right, you're thin, this isn't great. Some nights it might hurt you to, all right, this is going to be something they really have to work around the entire season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What about you, Ethan?
Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. The first thing I think I thought of was what Chase said, which is it just sucks that it has to be right now for JP.
Yeah.
Because, and I'd agree with what Ryan said as well. Like, even if he came back, I don't necessarily think he was going to light the world on fire. He was going to contend for Felix's job or anything like that. But it's just, moving into year number 2, and you want to see what he's able to do. And you want to get him more reps so that, when Felix is gone, he's the guy. Hope that he can work on his defense against quality teams this year in the SEC, and exactly what Ryan said about Auburn. And there's some really, really tough centers in this league. And, that's that depth. I mean, we saw it just last year. It's a little different because I don't think Felix is going to crash and burn in the NCAA tournament. But if he has a leg injury, if he gets not 100% and he starts struggling, you can't have.
He already had a hip pointer issue, like, out of the gate. Like, we've already seen it a little bit.
Exactly. If he starts struggling with that, who do you go to? I mean, I feel like across the next few weeks, Barnes is going to start running a lot of Igor at the 5, not because he particularly wants to, but just because, like, out of necessity. You got to see what you have, see if, that might create something pretty interesting, actually. If you put Igor and you say, hey, just hold up the best you can, that creates a pretty offensive, not juggernaut, I guess, but everyone can score. Felix can't score right now. JP could score. And that hurts. Mix that with the fact that Cam's hurt. I don't think it's going to be as bad, but if you keep losing guys like this, like, that's going to be problematic. You can't. There's not much of a margin for error anymore. You got to keep guys healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know, like, because Cam, it's looking like early January. It's SEC play. Like, I don't think it's a guarantee he gets back in the rotate. Like, that's a big jump to, like, not play for a month and a half, and then Barnes to put him back in there. I mean, he was developing and he looked like he was going to be a rotation guy this year, but I don't know. Like, I mean, Ryan, you probably have a better feel on this. Do you think Barnes brings him into the rotation, or do you think the timeline's going to make it complicated on if Cam Carr can fight his way back into the rotation?
The timeline does make it complicated for sure. I do think he'll get opportunities. But a take, I wrote about it in Tennessee Basketball Notebook I published on Sunday. A take I had a lot of things we learned about the team in the Bahamas, and I'm not sure we learned this. And look, I think Cam Carr has a significantly higher ceiling than Darlington Dubar. I think he's probably even just right now a better basketball player than Darlington Dubar. But when you talk about role, and two guys that are competing for pretty similar roles and spots in the rotation, I think Dubar fits what this team needs more, which is just play good defense, finish the easy stuff around the rim, be a good rebounder, be physical. And then, Cam Carr can make the open shots too. But Dubar, just makes some open threes occasionally, which he didn't shoot the ball great in the Bahamas, but he probably hit 2 of 6 open threes. And it's all right, you do that. That's with everything else. That's what you need from a dude that's going to play 8 to 10 minutes a game. You don't need him to light the world on fire, which Cam Carr has that ability, but he also, the lows are lower than I think what Dubar might give them. And look, it was 2 games for Dubar, so we'll see if he can have that consistency and what it looks like more. But that was one of my takeaways from the Bahamas, is that I think Dubar might fit what this team needs in that role better than Carr, but I do think Carr will at least get some opportunities. I just think it'd be short-sighted not to, because of I still think Tennessee thinks Carr is going to be a big part of its program in the next couple of years, and to me, it feels like it might be a little short-sighted just to not give him any chances when he comes back.
One more note. It feels kind of crazy just how quickly things change in this regard, because I feel like 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure how you guys felt about it. I know I felt that Dubar wasn't really going to be anything with this team. I thought he was kind of going to fade into obscurity, and now with JP going out, with Cam dealing with some injury issues, potentially out for a while, he becomes important. He did more than I thought he would. I think I even texted that in the group chat. He did more than I thought he would in his time, so that's good to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Dubar is at a crowded position, right, when Cam's healthy. That was the issue, is more of Tennessee's actually really deep on the wing right now. They're thin behind Sakai. They're thin at the 5. If Dubar is several inches taller, then there's a clear path. If he can,
Dubar was that 6'8" that Hofstra listed him at his build. He could hold up at the 5. So.
Right. I mean, even 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", somewhere in there. He could. It's just one of those where if he was a couple inches bigger, you can easily see the path and how it all works. Yeah. But I think with his size, it just makes it a little bit more complicated. But I think he's a good player, and it, to your point, Ryan, it's just the vet, and I think he'll be fine. I think Dubar is going to play solid minutes for Tennessee here for the next month and a half, and then we'll see what it looks like. But that's a good problem to have if you're Tennessee. Dubar and Cam Carr fighting for those opportunities, and that iron sharpens iron situation, and Cam learning from a veteran like Dubar ahead of him. So I think that'll be interesting. But Okpara is now just you've got to be careful. Felix can't go down. There's no margin for error now with Felix Okpara. He is. We talked about before the year where it's Sakai is the most critical piece to Tennessee, and I mean he is still the engine that keeps this thing moving. But Bishop Boswell's done okay out of the gate. Jordan Gainey obviously made the leap here a little bit. Jemai, we've seen guide Tennessee to Sweet 16 as the lead guard after Sakai went down. It's not ideal, but you look at where you're at now with just numbers. Felix Okpara is so huge for this team now. He has got to stay healthy, and you've got to be careful with Felix Okpara the rest of the way. I mean, final thing here. I mean, Santiago Vescovi obviously was a midseason addition. He joins the second semester, so he jumps in January, plays a true freshman. Is there any chance, based on this development, Ryan, that they add someone here in the next month?
I think your eyes are open for people, but I don't anticipate them finding someone in the next month that's can really help this team.
But did anybody have Vescovi on the radar, or was that an out of nowhere thing?
I mean, he had committed in November, and he was going to early enroll in January.
But that's what I'm saying. When in November, though? Before that time, was he on the radar in September? I don't remember.
Yeah, he was as a recruit on the radar for thought of as a next year recruit, the guy that's going to come in next year.
So there was not anyone like Vescovi now. There was not someone they had in mind a couple of months ago that hey, you never know.
But I will say I don't know if Vescovi was the full thought was he was going to be a midterm enrollee the whole time. I think
because there was a big injury, right? Who got hurt?
Lamont,
yeah.
And then they played maybe the worst game of the Rick Barnes era on CBS against Wisconsin. The day that mere 2 hours after Santi arrived on campus and lost 58-42, and were just miserable. I think Victor Bailey was the starting point guard, and it was bad. Maybe that might have been the year he sat out, but it was bad. And then it was all right, well, we don't really have any options, so Santi's going to go here. And I don't think Tennessee's that desperate still.
Yeah.
If Felix gets injured, then you're not desperate. But look, like I said, eyes open. if someone comes available, you probably try to grab them, but it doesn't feel like that happens much. So I'd say I'm skeptical. Also, Jemai Meshack, full Jemai Magic Johnson Meshack career arc. Sophomore year, Tennessee starting point guard on the Sweet 16 team. Senior year, have him play some key minutes at the 5 in the NCAA tournament. What a career arc that would be for Jemai.
I mean, Jemai is he's just such a great.
If anyone can do it, it's him.
Jemai is amazing. He is somehow underrated. He is
He'll never get the credit he deserves. Never.
I think he's starting to get some. I mean, he's now getting clips of him just ripping balls out of the opponent's hands, where it's just mesmerizing that Jemai is just such a good defender, and he's just gonna get steals. Like, I think he's getting a little bit more. There's more juice. I think people are catching on. Of just like it's. Yeah. Jemai is a different, special kind of player, and he even tweeted today he's going to be a meme with that Lazy River video. So Jemai, Jemai's the publicity is going up here, and this is a very pro Jemai Meshack. We've been on the Jemai is capital V capital G good for several years on this program.
I don't think recency bias is a real thing. I don't think I've ever had more fun watching anyone play defense. Pro or college. He is so much fun. He's so much fun. It just exactly what you said. He will just take the ball and he just has it. Yeah. It's like there's nothing you can do about it. That's
just special. Mean. And he's the nicest guy. It's just he is a mean basketball player on defense, and it's great.
It is. It's a ton of fun to watch.
Chaz Lanier though had a great Bahamas here. I mean, Ethan, has your thought on what Chaz Lanier can be now changed a little bit, seeing what he did against some big time competition? Are you now like, Chaz Lanier, like, he's not gonna be Dalton Connect, but he might be a little bit higher of a ceiling than Antonio Reeves, and he might be better somewhere in the middle of an Antonio Reeves and a Dalton Connect after his showing there?
It's funny you say Antonio Reeves. I saw a couple people saying that actually, and I don't think it's a terrible comp at all. I don't like the he and Dalton take. I mean, I understand they're like, the transfers and they're high shooters. That's about where it stops. Like, they're different types of players. They just are. Dalton's considerably more athletic. He sees the court better. He's, I think, a smarter basketball player. But to answer your question, I mean, that's exactly what you said. I feel like that's my thoughts. I thought, early in the year when he kind of struggled, I believe, against Indiana, and some people were like, oh, is he going to be this guy? Is he going to be that guy? I felt like that was just kind of going to be a blip on the radar, and he has exceeded what I thought he was going to be. I mean, he has this Dalton Connect-esque way of just locking in. I feel like where most of the comparisons are coming from, because he can just like take over. I mean, he hit 5 triples in the first 4 minutes. That's one of the most insane things I've ever seen. Yeah. And then he didn't even score anything in the second half, and Tennessee still wins by 20. So that kind of stuff every single week, each week, he's raising their ceiling. And if he keeps doing this the entire year, then yeah, it's going to be hard to stop, because that takes so much pressure off everyone else. It allows Zakai to be the best player that Zakai can be, which, by the way, apart from the turnovers, he's probably having his best start to a season at Tennessee. His assist numbers are insane. He's had at least 6 in every single game. He's had at least 1 steal in every single game. He's shooting better from the field. He's shooting the same as he was from 3 as he was last season. So Zakai is playing his best basketball right now because of guys like Igor, because of guys like Chaz that just help him. Like, it's perfect for him. It's the perfect offense for Zakai.
Is there anyone who we would say, Ryan, that's gotten off to a slow start? I feel like everyone right now on Tennessee's rotation is playing well out of the gate. I don't really know of anyone who qualify.
Yeah, maybe Felix offensively.
Yeah.
And not that I think he's going to have be a huge guy offensively, but I never thought Felix was going to score a lot when he catches the ball and someone's on his back. I thought he'd be a lot better scoring when he catches the ball and somebody's on his hip than he's been right now, because he's not been good there. And I've seen him be good in practice that. But I think you're right. I think everybody else has. And even as a guy with the turnover things, Ethan, like, really just the Louisville game.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, he had 3 turnovers in the Baylor game. I was really curious. I don't know if y'all are locked into this. There was 1 second between the shot clock and the game clock at the end of the Baylor game, and he was dribbling it out. And I really thought he was going to pass the ball to Cade Phillips to have Cade eat the turnover for the shot clock violation. But good teammate Sakai ate it himself. And then with Chaz, like, because I think I was probably lower on Chaz than most people were. And I think what he's done well that's better than what I expected is just like when he gets going shooting, he gets his shot off so quick that it's just so hard to defend. Chaz, the 2-point scorer, really hasn't been a whole lot different than what I expected it to be, which is fine, but not great. And it goes to Ethan, you're absolutely right. Like the Dalton Chaz comparisons are very annoying. I saw one today. It was like a 1-minute clip, and it was like, or maybe 90-second clip, and it was like Tennessee's using Chaz Lanier the exact same way they use Dalton Connect. And I was like, groundbreaking. Tennessee runs its offense, and player that plays the same position as other player gets in similar roles in the actions because they play the exact same position. It's going to drive me crazy. I at least appreciate there's a ton of Chaz Lanier isn't Dalton Connect, but he's still really good. I do appreciate those. I wish we could just let Chaz be Chaz and not have to compare him to the best player in the SEC in the last.
But there's no way around it. You knew what you're walking into. I mean, you're walking into the best one-year transfer in Tennessee hoops history. Right. I mean, honestly, is he the best 1-year transfer in college basketball history?
Did Schumpert play 1 year or 2?
2.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't think of anyone.
I think it's DK.
Just off the top of my head, anyway.
I will say, listening to Rod Clark on the Ball Club Confidential, talking about, like, I think he said DK told him it's like if he had another year of eligibility, he wouldn't be a Laker or something. He'd be back at Tennessee. Oof. One more year of DK.
DK told everybody that. That was his favorite line. And look, I do think DK loved his year at Tennessee. Loved it. Loves Tennessee. And maybe he does. That is a awful easy thing to say when you don't have another year of eligibility.
True.
Like, that's just playing to your base. It's smart. And I look, again, maybe he did, and I do truly think he loved his year at Tennessee and loved Knoxville and loved Tennessee fans. But it's a lot easier to say that when you know you don't have the choice.
True.
And your only choice is to go make millions of dollars in the NBA.
It worked out perfectly.
I do think either way, it's very clear that man loves the University of Tennessee.
Yes.
Dalton Connect is going to be a great ambassador for Tennessee basketball for a long time, is my guess.
Dalton Connect will be back at a Tennessee football game getting honored at the end of the first quarter every year for the next 15 years. Like,
he gets his number retired, right?
Maybe.
I think they should.
They have to hit like a certain.
I hate that it's a great number though. Part of me is like 3's too good. 3's that's a great number. I don't know if I can do.
Rid of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's either like 3 of 5 things or like 4 or 6 things you have to do, and he's got 3 of them locked in that he did for sure. It was like first team All-American. Or all but one of them. I know one was first team All-American, one was SEC Player of the Year.
Yeah.
The one that's up in the air it's like you have to win a major award and a major national award. And I remember writing at one point that he won a Julius Erving Award, which goes to the best wing in the country, and being like, all right, he's officially checked it off. And then Alex Schwartz, Tennessee's basketball SID, was like, it's kind of ambiguous of what's considered a top award. So, like, it's not 100% sure that he's done it. So, I think Tennessee kind of moved some of this stuff around, too, for Chris Lofton to get in. So, it's possible, but I don't think it's a guarantee either.
I kind of think, especially if it's ambiguous like that, I feel like Tennessee would kind of move things around. Like, I mean, you talk about people that this fan base have rallied around that aren't football players, and Dalton's number 1. I mean, he's got to be, like, at least in recent memory. Like this. Can you think of anyone else?
I mean, SEMO was pretty hard. Like, people rally. SEMO was pretty hardcore this year. I mean, but SEMO was kind of clouded because I think Xander was right there too. I mean, the fan base. I mean, they kind of split each other up a little bit. Like, Dalton was just Dalton. Like, it was the Dalton show.
And to your point, SEMO won a national championship, so I can concede that.
There were many moments last year in baseball season where I just had to, like, sit back and be like, I just covered Dalton Connect, and I am covering Christian Moore right now. This is unbelievable that I'm covering. These are, and I remember doing it, and I might have talked about it on here one time. I was like, I can't think of better Tennessee athletes in my entire life than these 2 players. And Tennessee fans, and in my case, covering them, are getting to do it in a 4-month stretch. Is Tennessee baseball and Tennessee basketball their best ever seasons?
Yeah.
Ryan Schumpert, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at RockyTopInsider.com this week?
Yeah, I think all eyes on the college football playoff and Tennessee's game against Vanderbilt. We'll have coverage from Tennessee UT Martin on Wednesday evening. I know everybody's going to be really dialed in and locked into that. A really big game against a good Skyhawks team.
Yeah.
But obviously, all the focus this week's on football. So that's where the bulk of our coverage will be.
There you go. Ethan Stone, what about you and the team over at SaturdayDownSouth.com this week?
Yep, we're going to be in the same boat. A lot of bowl stuff, a lot of college football playoff implications. Georgia and Georgia Tech's going to be a bigger game than I think some people are giving it credit for. Ohio State, Michigan is still going to be massive. If Ohio State loses, that has Big Ten championship ramifications. So we'll have full coverage of that Saturday, Thursday, Friday of this week, and then moving forward into bowls, into college football playoffs. So look out for that Saturday tradition and Saturday Down South.
There you go. Ethan Stone, Ryan Schumpert, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.